Excellencies, I am Precious Osinaku and I'm your host for the Peacemakers Hub. Thank you so much for joining us as we counted down to the MTI Nigeria International Day of Appreciation. And also, we launched today on the 2nd of April 2022. Thank you. I appreciate you. For a while now, we've been on the subject matter, understanding the human nature. And I'm sure and hope we've been learning and unlearning a lot of things. Today, we're going to be talking about a significant bit of understanding the human nature. We're going to be talking about bias. What is bias? Why should we talk about bias in understanding the human nature? It's important we talk about bias because as much as, sometimes when bias comes into play, or when we talk about bias, we usually presume injustice. We usually will presume unfairness to someone or a group or something. But as difficult as it may sound, we all have bias in different ways, different forms. And that's because bias can be conscious, it can be unconscious, it can be positive, and it can also be negative. So what is bias? Bias is essentially a prejudice we have in favor or against a person, a thing, an institution, whatever. And it can be, like I said earlier, it can be conscious or it can also be unconscious. It can be negative and it can be positive. And like I said, we all have this. Let me cite some examples. Okay, I'll start with this example that happened to me while I was much younger. So I remember traveling down to my village. I'm from the southeastern part of Nigeria, Imo State. So I remember traveling down to my village at a time with my family, and I remember going to visit I was going to my maternal home. That is the part where my mother comes from. I was going to visit them. And well, my parents, they are from the same community, but of course different villages. So I was trying to go to my mother's house. But then in going to my mother's house from my father's house, you have to go through my grandfather's compound. And my uncle, that is my father's elder brother, lives in that compound. So you have to pass the front of that compound to get to my grandmother's house, that is my mother's house. My mother's house. And I was with my last sister that morning. We were both going. And when I got to my grandfather's house, my uncle was just in front of the house. And I just greeted him like, "Good morning, sir," the way we usually would just greet in this part of the world, Nigeria. So I just greeted and he responded. I was expecting my younger sister to greet too, but she wasn't saying anything. And I'm like, "Won't you greet?" And my uncle started laughing because he was also there. And he's like, "Oh, she's greeted." She greeted like a Yoruba woman. And, it was just so funny. And we all laughed. But what did he mean by she greeted like a Yoruba woman? So instead of my sister to mutter a word or utter a word, instead of her to say something, she didn't say anything. What she did was she just curtsied. There's a way the Yorubas would, a traditional Yoruba would greet, bending down a little or, nodding or something to greet an elderly person. So that was what she did. But, being that my uncle is quite familiar with the Yoruba culture, for him, it's fine. So I cited this example to draw our attention to, our different, for some persons, let me use myself as an example. I thought my sister was being disrespectful because she didn't greet. But apparently she greeted, but she greeted in her own way. And that's quite different from how a typical Igbo person would greet. So a typical Igbo person who doesn't understand the Yoruba culture and who maybe is greeted in that manner will think that, this child is being disrespectful or this child has not learned to greet. So that's an example. That's an example of some of this. And also in my peace building work, or the work I do as a peace builder, sometimes it involves going to different communities. And I remember at a time I had to work in some communities. And of course, in working in some of these communities, you have to start with their village heads and all of that stuff. And I remember then, like one of the requirements for going to some of these communities or going to see the village head would mean that you'd have to wear like very proper clothes. I can't even put on what I'm putting on now. Like, you have to wear clothes that have sleeves, and then you have to like wear a headscarf. Do you get, like, you have to do all that stuff. Like, you have to like tie a headscarf if you're a female to cover your head. But because I'd learned, I knew better at the time. But an average person would say, in the 21st century, why would I have to cover, or why would I have to wear a headscarf to see a village head, But, wearing the headscarf just signifies that that you're identifying with them. You're trying to build a trust relationship. You're not, I'm going to, for me, it's not important if I tie a headscarf or not. I'm very indifferent about it. But now that I understand that I'm going into a community where this is very important to them, this signifies respect, this signifies I am dignifying them, then I would have to tie a headscarf because I'm identifying with them. I choose to respect their culture. I choose to respect their culture. I choose to respect their culture, and that's very important. That's really important because it's easy to build trust that way. It's easy to get things done because a negative form of bias would mean that you feel like, oh well, I think I know better. What's the point of tying a headscarf? Why should I tie a headscarf? So it gives you a sense of superiority. It gives you a sense of, you think that, oh, these people are old-fashioned. Like, they don't know the anything. They don't know anything. They don't know how, they don't know, in local parlance, they don't know what's up. But that's just who they are. And if you want to be a great communicator, if you want to achieve whatever reason you set out to start off a relationship with them, then it's important you understand why they do what they do. And like I said, we all at different levels have different forms of bias. And these perceptions or these perspectives influences how we relate or interact with people, how we see people. I could give another example. I know someone who I know really well, like very, very, very well. I have quite a close relationship with this person. And I remember when she lost her husband, she's Igbo and she lost her husband. Even I know in some Igbo cultures or some Igbo cultures, when a woman loses her husband that way, they crop off her hair, they take off her hair. But for her particular culture, it's not, you don't even need to do it. It's not mandatory. Or I don't even think it's a cultural requirement. Do you understand? I don't even think it's a cultural requirement. But of her own free will, this woman, decided that she was going to cut her hair. Because for her, losing her husband and cutting her hair after losing her husband is a form of respect. It's a way of telling her husband, I respect you. So I remember when she did that, and of course she did that when she traveled back to the home, like her hometown, like where she's from in Nigeria. So that's where she did that. So she resides in Lagos, another state in Nigeria. And of course, Lagos is like, we have a lot of people, different cultures, traditions, and all of that in Lagos. But of course, Lagos is like the commercial capital of Nigeria. So when she returned to Lagos, and a lot of people saw her, I know people who literally said things like, these Igbo people, they've come again, they've started again. Oh, this culture is barbaric, this culture is this. People said so many things. People came to her, asked questions. Oh, why did you cut your hair? Is it this? Is it, And people came to tell her, or a lot of people came to tell her why they think what she did was very stupid. Some people were really, 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 really vocal, like use such words actually, like you're very stupid for doing this, and even worse, or harsher words, or, oh, are you saying I can help you fight? Some people were even going to be advocates for her Like, is it, I mean, is it, were you tortured? Were you this? Were you that? I can help you fight. I can help you do this. Should we start off a case? Why should they cut your hair? And, you know, for me, that's jumping to conclusion. Now, I'm not going to talk about what I'm saying today, or what we're doing right now is not to talk about the rightness or wrongness of our action. No. But if you want to reach to people, and that's where we need us to be conscious about this, and that's why we're having this conversation, or that's why we're talking about this, that we all at different levels have biases, and most times they are unconscious. Sometimes they even negate things that for us are, oh, this is not my self-image, but they are unconscious and we don't even know. So imagine being very rude to that woman, or thinking that maybe some parts of the southeastern part of Nigeria, the culture is barbaric. But for her, she's not seeing it that way. She's not seeing it that way. For her, it's a sign of respect. For her, nobody even compelled her to do it. Of her free will, she decided to cut her hair because she feels it's a sign of respect. And if you want to even get to her, what we're saying is, you don't come to her as, oh, that's wrong. That's being insensitive. No, we don't go that way. We don't use that route, because that means you're coming to say what you have or what you know is superior. And sometimes it's not like that. And that's why we need everyone to be conscious about the concept of bias, that we all have it, that we all portray it at different levels, and that we should be conscious, particularly if we're saying that we need to dignify people, particularly if we're saying that people need to be respected, particularly if we believe that people should be respected. And of course, we've said it severally on this platform, that people are different and they have a right to be different. So yeah, people are different and they have a right to be different. But we all come with our, because of, in our upbringing, so the process of socialization and all of that stuff. There's what we call cultural programming that makes us feel, or make you feel, that this is who I am. And if this is who you are, some other persons have a right to be who they are. And if you want to get to them, then you need to empathize, you need to respect, you need to dignify. And that's why I was saying that in understanding the human nature, we need to be conscious of our own biases, because we can have these biases. And because people do what they do doesn't make it wrong in itself. I'm going to just cite a few adages again that goes to support some of the things I've been saying since we started having this, since I started talking about this. We hear things like silence is the best answer for a fool. We hear things like silence is the best answer for a fool. There's a popular statement that is attributed to Martin Luther King that I do not remember the noise or the voices of my enemies, but rather the silence of my friends. We hear things like, it's only a smarter person. The smarter you become, rather, the more silent you are. We've had such words: the smarter you become, the more silent you are, or that it is wisdom to be quiet. And then we've had things like the world watched while we died, like being quiet. What I'm just trying to say, in essence, is we've had adages. I'm trying to bring our minds to this. We've had adages that goes to support being quiet or being silent. We've also had adages that goes to support speak up. Do you understand? We've had adages that goes to support that. Now, are we saying these adages are wrong? No. When we listen to them or we analyze them, they just go to show the cultural belief or the cultural perspective of different people. It just goes to show why people act the way they do. So for some people, maybe an American, or for most Americans, they may be more assertive. That's just them. That's just a cultural thing. Okay, here in Nigeria, maybe as Igbo, I may be more assertive. That's just it. But it doesn't mean the other person is a fool. The person who chooses silence, or who chooses that, you know what, I'm going to approach this matter in this form. It doesn't mean that that person is wrong. It just means that that's how they've chosen to do their own thing. And if you're going to work with them, if you're going to have a good relationship with them, then first you must try to understand why they do what they do. And we'll start off by respecting, by listening, actively listening, empathizing, withdrawing to reflect. Why did this person take this action? So we're saying in essence that in human relationships, we all have biases at different levels. And the more self-aware, the more we're self-aware, the more we're conscious about it, the more we can deal with this. And the more we can enjoy, fruitful relationships with other people. We'll continue this conversation next week on biases. You could share your story with us on how, people have, we want to hear your story of how people have responded or reacted to you in a certain light on the basis of your belief, or something you said, or, we want to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. And I want us to go back home with this. The bias does not necessarily mean discrimination. We'll talk about it next week. Thank you for joining us today for today's episode on the Peacemakers Hub. I remain Precious Osinaku. Do join us next week. Thank you. Bye. Mediation Training Institute is registered in Nigeria with a vision to create a new African order where peace and harmonious coexistence will thrive, where divisive national frontiers and the burden of military spending and man-studied inhumanity to man will be things of the past. We do this by providing requisite skills and resources for managing differences, for promoting peace and harmonious coexistence at home, at work, and in the society at large, through conflict management and mediation skills training, and the promotion of mediation and other non-adversarial methods of dispute resolution in private and public sector practice. For enquiries, you can call 091 563 11242 or 080-3111-5115, or you can visit our social media pages, Mediation Training Institute, Facebook and LinkedIn at Mediation MTI, Twitter at MTI Nigeria, Instagram, Mediation Training Institute, building peace, creating harmony, sustaining relationships.